So, You Love an Alcoholic? Lessons for a Codependent. Written by Grace W. Roldson. Read for you by Angela Olfast. Disclaimer. My story is written in a pen name to protect the anonymity of all involved. I do not name the alcoholic. From my understanding, alcoholism is generally a socially self-diagnosed disease within the 12-step support groups. Therefore, I am not diagnosing the alcoholic condition, but rather confessing my matching codependency condition that I self-identified. I refer to the Al-Anon ACA 12-step family groups as my recovery and my program. Originally, the alcoholic was my qualifier that led me to seek help by attending 12-step meetings. Over my years in these meetings, I realized that I was actually my own qualifier, with issues of reacting, controlling, and suffering an attachment disorder. I was taught by my family that alcoholism is a family disease, thus I refer to the disease more often than the alcoholic. I repeat this phrase throughout the book to emphasize this point. By repeating alcoholic and disease of alcoholism, I remind myself and my readers that their partners are suffering as well. It is also a way to affirm that the disease of alcohol is to blame, not so much the person. It will be noted that I repeat myself, saying the same thing in a slightly different way, because repetition is the key to learning. The way I learned my lessons was by repeating these truths. Furthermore, I try to show the separation of the alcoholic from this disease. To make clear a distinction, sometimes I purposefully say my alcoholic rather than say the alcoholic, because not every alcoholic is the same. Saying it this way is not meant to be an ownership of the alcoholic as mine or belonging to me, which I used to do in my sickness, but rather pointing out that this was my situation with a unique individual and a complex issue. This is my interpretation of recovering from the effects of alcoholism. Take what lesson you like and leave the rest, perhaps for another time. About this book. Lesson. Be open to learning the lessons. You were born with wings. Why prefer to crawl through life? Jalal ad-Din Muhammad Rumi. So, you love an alcoholic? Are you a woman who loves an alcoholic man? Are you a woman who has spent years trying to love a man who drinks? Do you want to stop your very unhealthy, toxic love and codependent ways? Are you ready to leave, heal, and live again? This book is for women who seek healing within this very challenging subject. In order to heal, I had to learn my lessons, name them, and allow them to change me. I discovered that in order to change my life and not repeat my past with an alcoholic man, I had to make changes within myself. This book is intended for those women who are ready to courageously place themselves in the center of their own lives. My question to you is, I know you love him, but isn't it time to love yourself more? I ask you the same questions I asked myself. Does life with his drinking and his thinking no longer appeal to you? Are you feeling stuck, hopeless, and in despair? Would you like to break the spell that the alcoholic seems to have over you? Are you ready to set yourself free from a life of coping and dealing with his drinking? Do you want to be happy? In this brave book, I share the conversation that my soul had with itself. I went through the pain, shame, and failure. This book contains the collected wisdom I gained through educating myself on alcoholism, codependency, and love addiction. I added up my knowledge, my personal experiences, plus my personal recovery in Al-Anon, and my own self-help studies, and out came this wisdom that I wish I had discovered years ago. Here, I journaled my journey out of my codependent crazies. I was inspired by the story, The Very Hungry Caterpillar by Eric Carle, a children's book that I read to my daughter countless times. To me, the butterfly is a magical being. Personally, I could relate to the process of undergoing a change of that magnitude. I could see myself and my life played out similar to that colorful story. When I started loving an alcoholic, I myself was a very hungry, codependent caterpillar. Like the caterpillar, I crawled along the ground looking for food and easy meals, which I equate to the loneliness of looking for relief from the pain of being in an alcoholic relationship. When I was finally tired of crawling along the ground and eventually gathered the strength to leave the relationship, I needed time to reflect and heal. I isolated myself in a cocoon of sorts, which I call my chrysalis. Finally, after several years of warming in the light of the sun, in sacred solitude, nurturing myself and allowing a higher power to change me, I eventually emerged as a beautiful butterfly. I emerged with wings, free to live my own life and fly. Success stories, like that of a caterpillar to a butterfly, satisfy my soul. I love a dirt to diamond story of transformation, especially my own. How one can go from crawling on the ground to flying in the air is a miraculous mystery. I must add that learning how to fly wasn't easy, but it sure is better than codependently crawling. These passages, these words, can help you navigate the stages of personal change. Some emotionally difficult phases are involved with the transformation process. The breakdown of the caterpillar, isolated in the cocoon, had to happen. Pain is part of the process. As I went through and survived each stage, I witnessed the phases of my change much like that of a soon-to-be butterfly. My lesson: learn my lessons. I write about my insights. I write about my newfound awarenesses. I write about my spiritual awakenings. I share my beginning, my middle, and my end, including my maintenance phase of my very personal journey of loving an alcoholic man and leaving him behind. These are my codependent confessions. You might read all of my stage 1, where I crawled around in my mind trying to feed my thoughts something healthy. Stage 1, every end is a new beginning, crawling on the ground craving a companion. Or you may skip to Stage 2, the section where I cocooned myself and started my deep inner work. Stage 2, in the cocoon of new creation, the chrysalis of change. Or you may really want to hear my Stage 3 lessons, when I emerged a brilliant butterfly. Stage 3, becoming and being a beautiful butterfly, taking flight. Or perhaps you want to connect with Stage 4, on how I learned to live again. Stage 4, flying with brilliance and grace, dancing the dance of life from a higher altitude. Sitting in an isolated corner of the local coffee shop, which I consider my cocoon, I originally wrote these passages as a journal to myself. Like an enclosed butterfly, I captured my imaginal cells. Imaginal cells are dormant cells within the chrysalis containing poetic genius that help the process of creating a new form and structure. I discovered that writing was very therapeutic. Journaling was how I reset and rewired my brain to correct my faulty codependent thinking. It was my chrysalis. Reading back through my journals is how I remembered my lessons. Reading them many times was what made me aware of my metamorphosis. You will read how being touched by the disease of alcoholism pushed me to grow and create new and better thoughts that brightened my future. Codependency and love addiction were my battles to fight, while alcohol was one of the alcoholic's battles that I couldn't fight for him. I fought an internal war, and in the end, I learned how to surrender to each stage to necessitate change. By seeing my strength take shape on this subject, you may acquire some courage of your own to begin the stages of changing your life. I continue to live and lead as proof that you can live on with wisdom to lead a fuller, richer, and more authentic life. There is a way to survive toxic codependency and the often daily disease of alcoholism. Once you have survived it, I believe you can then thrive from it. Practicing recovery filled me with my own power, self-love, and serenity. Maintaining those gifts takes one day at a time. Are you open to learning your lessons? Will my story of survival help you? And the day came when the risk to remain tight in a bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom. Anais Nin. Synopsis of my love story. One woman's story of tragedy to triumph, loving an alcoholic. She let go. She let go of all the right reasons. Wholly and completely, without hesitation or worry, she just let go. There was no applause or congratulations. No one thanked her or praised her. It was what it was, and it is just that. Reverend Sapphire Rose. She let go. My beginning, end, and rebirth. Have you ever loved a man so much and felt such a connection in your soul that you placed him on the stage of your life and then built your dreams around him? For me, that man was the most handsome boy in my high school. I had placed a spotlight on him. He was my star. He had everything going for him. When he spoke, his words were music to my ears. Of all the girls in school, I felt lucky that he had chosen me. The alcoholic I fell in love with was a prize to be won, or so I thought. In reality, he was my great love gone wrong. My future life with him turned out much differently than what I had hoped, dreamed, and expected. Discouraging days and nights dragged on into disappointing years. The alcoholic's directionless decade of drinking dampened his glow. Yet I still kept my spotlight on him. I still clung to him and stood by, watching and waiting, hoping he would change into the man I believed he could be. I loved him so much, I hurt. I suffered right alongside him, subjecting myself to years of betrayal, confusion, and deep-seated depression. The effects of alcoholism took a toll on my self-esteem. Somewhere in the romance, I turned over my self-worth. Somehow, I became a co-addicted, codependent woman. 15 years slipped by before I finally garnered enough courage to leave on my own terms. But in order to leave this love, I had to break my own heart. That's when my real work and this book began. Through a twist of fate, I found out I was pregnant 3 months after I left the alcoholic. My misfortune was that as soon as real responsibility showed up, he was not able to be the man I hoped he would be, nor the man he claimed he was all those years. His words turned out to be just words, but with no music. My great love for him was gone with the click of my apartment door, when he said something to me that made my heart sink to my stomach. With enough recovery and the 12-step program of Al-Anon, I did what I knew was right. I turned my love and attention to my unborn child and away from the alcoholic. I vowed for her to never see the darkness and destruction of the disease in our home. I loved her before she even arrived. By practicing recovery, by helping myself, and by relying on the kindness of strangers, I raised our child on my own to be safe and strong against this adversary. With my new strength, the alcoholic lost his power over me. I became free again to love myself. Letting go of the alcoholic felt like a death. I had to grieve the loss of the relationship. While the alcoholic was not literally deceased, he was spiritually dead to me. My soul sustained the loss of love that I had slowly been losing with my co-sickness. The disease of alcoholism was progressive. It took everything. I saw him diminish in every way a man possibly can, short of the grave. I saw myself fall apart in a separate type of graveyard for battered, codependent souls. However, with recovery, separated from the alcoholic, I began to grow. I began to blossom with a baby in my belly. My great love for her kept me strong. Through daily amends to myself, I began to forgive myself for the messy life circumstances that I tied myself to and that I brought my child into. Through ongoing recovery and learning my lessons, I turned my fate into fortunate circumstances. I survived and saved my life. I triumphed over this tragedy. My grief transformed into gratitude. I single-handedly built a new platform, and I stepped onto the stage of life I wanted to be living. With my life as my stage, I became my own star. I turned my ear to my own voice and listened to my own words of wisdom. I even dared to dream new dreams and rebuild my life towards them and around myself, this time as a solid foundation. I was about to give birth to a baby girl and a new version of me at the same time. I poured my love into her precious awaiting soul. I wrote my lessons down and loved them. Eventually, I started loving myself with an even greater love than I had for the alcoholic. Also by Grace W. Roldson. I loved an alcoholic, but hated the drinking. 11 Essential Strategies to Survive Codependency and Live in Recovery with Self-Love. Co-Parenting with a Narcissist. 7 Self-Rules to Stay Sane. A Survivor's Story. How to Fight a Narcissist in Family Court and Win. Super Smart Strategies for Success. And Co-Parenting with a Sociopath. Survival and Sanity Guide. Available on Amazon. Coming soon. A companion journal and workbook, as well as a 365 daily meditation reader.